Jeremy Rosenthal joining us, attorney. He is here to talk a little bit about student loan forgiveness. Apparently that's been put on hold again. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Jeremy, it's off again? Is that what's happened?
It's off again. They told us in law school, if you're going to live like a lawyer when you're a student, you're going to live like a student when you're a lawyer. It's a really complicated topic. So think of it like this. If you remember the HEROES Act after September 11th, one of the 814 things that we did, right? 200, 500 pages, basically gives the Department of Education a lot of reign over student loans. The problem here is that that comes a lot of times out of states' coffers, and every state treats it a little bit differently. So what happens is we have what the Biden administration considers to be really excessive student loan issues. They try to cancel some of it. Georgia, a lot of states came out and filed suit. Georgia said this hurts our state's coffer. And what happened was a federal judge in Georgia said, yes, it does. Let's look at this. No, it doesn't. And then the state of Missouri came back. One of their federal judges did block it and say, look, this hits Missouri a little differently than it hit Georgia. We're going to go ahead and block it. We're waiting on the Supreme Court to rule on it. And that, again, is going to be subject to this election.
All right, Jeremy, hang on the line just a second. We have a lot of questions for you. Now we've kind of set this up. It's 6:21. Let's do an update on traffic and weather on the ones now with Monty Cook.
Jeremy, okay, so numbers, people have crunched the numbers for this sort of thing, and the latest ones I'm looking at from the Cato Institute, the biggest change is total loan forgiveness, $167 billion for just over 4 million borrowers. What does that amount to for just the average American? It's coming out of our paycheck, isn't it?
Conceivably, yes. I mean, so you pay these people to go to college. And in some ways, yes or no. What you're canceling is a lot of interest. And that's not right. That's money you were entitled to collect. So from that standpoint, the taxpayer is paying for it. But you're basically saying, well, we're not going to make quite the money that we were going to make. My understanding was that each potential student could qualify for, I think, up to $20,000. And don't quote me on this, but I think one of the prerequisites for qualifying for these loans, for the loan forgiveness, was that you have had like 20 years worth of debt, or you have had to have already paid X amount in interest. So it was a real, I think the move by the Biden administration was probably largely symbolic at his base. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, if you're going to forgive money that you were going to get, it's a loss.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people question why one federal judge in one state can rule one way and one in another can rule another way, and this somehow affects the entire nation. Is that a good system? I know we've always had that, but it seems kind of crazy.
A federal judge has got a lot of stroke. You know, a federal judge can sign a piece of paper and block an entire port. They've got a lot of power. And again, what you have here is all these states that have brought suit against the Biden administration, and they're the ones that are typically going to oppose what Biden does. It hits them differently. It comes out of a different stack of money from Georgia than it does in Missouri. And that's why the Georgia judge initially blocked it. He let it expire. But then it's like, no, Missouri's like, and the Georgia judge says, look, this just doesn't hurt Georgia taxpayers the way you said it did. Well, the Missouri judge says, well, in Missouri, this really hurts because the fund that this comes out of is different. So that's why you're seeing the different treatment.
All right. And so right now everything is on hold. But really, that didn't stop Joe Biden from doing this the first time initially when the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, said, yeah, this is not something you can do. And he even said, we're going to do it anyway.
I mean, he's a politician, right? When Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, when he did an executive order, if you read Doris Kearns Goodwin and you watch the movie Lincoln, he says, I didn't know if it was going to work. It's an executive order. You guys can challenge it and you guys may win. So he's kind of approaching it from that way. The fascinating thing is that the Supreme Court is almost certainly waiting on the result of this election, because if Trump wins, problem goes away and they don't have to rule on it. If Kamala Harris wins, you would think that she is going to probably have the same issue and sort of advance it. So it may never see the light of day. We'll see.
Jeremy Rosenthal, thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll talk to you again.
Yeah.